have no juice in my battery. How's it going, guys? Casey here with the Coyote Works channel. Headed out on another weekend overland Jeep exploring adventure. I'm pretty excited about this trip. We're gonna head out across the desert and make our way up into the forest, and our goal is to camp tonight on the spot of an old railroad logging camp. Part of the goal for this trip is to get up on this campsite, do some exploring around, and see if we can't find the answers to some questions about what life was like back on that old lumber camp. So there were a series of these lumber camps up here in this part of the forest within this, several hundred square mile area up in here. But this particular camp that I've located, I can't find on any of the old maps, and I can't find any history on it. This would have been back around 1910 to 1915 that this camp was first established, and at its heyday there may have been anywhere in the ballpark of 300 to 500 workers there, and then some with their families, their children, their wives, etc. These were pretty incredible operations up here. They logged this whole area by rail. So these camps were the main camps where they operated all of the railroad logging out of. This is going to be a pretty interesting trip. We're going to do some camping. You'll get some overland exploring. We'll see some cool trails, and then ultimately we'll just have a good time exploring this awesome historic site together. I'll show you guys some of the gear, show you some of what I cook along the way, and just enjoy being out here for the weekend. All right, we're getting back off the beaten path now, and the roads are starting to get a little bit narrower and a little bit rougher, and we've got a couple of more miles to go, but I want to really keep my eyes peeled through here for any signs of any kind of that railroad logging activity. Hey, you can tell not too many people come down this road. We got a tree growing right up in the middle of the road in front of us, and that wouldn't happen if there was very much traffic on this road. Yeah, with those clouds building up like that, it looks like it could actually open up and dump on us. So I think what we'll probably do is try to find our camp spot first. And we're getting in the general area where we want to camp, or we'll be right on the edge of that lumber camp. So we'll look for a spot to camp. We'll probably even go ahead and kind of set up our camp, because where we're going to camp, we can actually walk out from there to explore most of the area that I want to explore. It'll be nice to get our camp set up before it starts to rain too hard. Oh. All right, I think this is going to work, and the sun's peeking out for a second, so we're going to actually go ahead and get at least the most of our camp set up really quick. Oh, and interestingly enough, we are literally parked right on top of where there was a bunch of this camp activity going on. Look at this. So this might actually answer one of our first questions, which is, were there women and children here? I believe this is maybe the wheels off of a kid's wagon, or potentially like a little tricycle or something. Yeah, guys, this is crazy. Literally right where I was going to set up my camp, or where I am going to set up my camp, got old tobacco tins, old pieces of glass. So one thing I wanted to show you guys is a little bit about why I picked this spot. I get that question a lot, and the reason why I picked this spot is because we do have some storms coming in. The ground's starting to get moist, and so this is a time of year that if we get some strong winds, trees can start to come down. So as you can see, I picked a spot with mostly younger growth trees around. There's one big old growth tree right there, and it's leaning away. It's leaning the opposite direction from my Jeep and my camp. So Nice open area, a place for me to set up my table, chairs, get comfortable, place for me to stand up my rooftop tent. I like to have a little bit of a view out in front of me. I don't have a fantastic one here, but I do have a little bit of one. And yeah, and that's what we got. All right, so we're gonna get some gear out of the Jeep, and I'm gonna show you guys really just how small of a pile of gear I have for this trip. Now, if you look in the back of my Jeep, I just have this little pile of stuff right here. But actually, a good amount of this stuff is stuff that just stays in my Jeep all the time. My bag of recovery gear, my extra water, my inch pack. So I'm going to pull out the stuff that's for camping, and I'll show you guys how small of a pile that is. All right, so here I've got my chair, my table, and then my kitchen box. And here I've got my clothes bag and my loadout bag. Now, this loadout bag has a couple of things in it that I'm going to actually need for this camping trip, but actually most of the stuff in here is just a kind of emergency gear or stuff like I've got tarps in here and poles in case it rains and I want to string up a shelter or something like that. Really, the only thing in here that I'm really need for this trip is my overhead light, my overhead camp light, and my camp stove that's in there. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and set up the rooftop tent. And the nice thing is, my bed and everything is pretty much all set up. I've got this inflatable pillow right there that I'll blow up. But other than that, we're pretty much good to go. Keep a little towel up here. This is just to put my shoes on top of at night when I crawl up into the tent. This is a inflatable pillow with some nice padding on the outside. And I really like this thing. It's super comfortable. The trick is not to inflate it too much. You want a little bit of flexibility in it. That is going to be just perfect. And this is made by Climate. This is their inflatable pillow with the quilted covering on it. All right, so this is my food box, and this is another, I think it's a South African ammo box. Get it from my buddies over at Jeep Overland. Shout out to my brothers Josh and Daniel. So I'm just going to go ahead and get everything out that I'm going to use for dinner. All right, well, I'm just finishing up my iced latte from Primeville Coffee Company, the last of my civilized coffee. Man, those girls make a good latte. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go on a little walk. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to head out that direction, and we're going to try to find that edge of the camp. We want to see kind of how far it goes. But before we take off, I thought I'd show you guys what I'm bringing. So I picked up this new Apex pick. I like to have something that I can kind of scrape through the top layer of duff, the pine needles and everything when I'm looking around for stuff. So we're going to try out this Apex pick. Yeah, that wind's starting to come up a little bit out here. So we could get a little bit of a rainstorm, but oh, look at this. Big old chunk of pipe right there. Oh yeah, here's some more metal right here. Yeah, so we are in it, and we're actually not very far from the Jeep. In fact, look at this over here. Old fuel cans. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, look at this. An old bed frame. Yeah, there's stuff all over this area. I'm seeing all kinds of broken china and cans, and yeah, there's just stuff everywhere here. Okay, so this is the farthest this direction that I've run into camp debris. So this tells me this camp keeps going this way farther than I originally thought. Yeah, this is a piece of an old stove. So that's a pretty good sign that we're in living area here. Oh yeah, and there's just stuff everywhere. Good. This is good. This is exactly what we were hoping for. All right, guys, I think I found something interesting. I saw a couple of cans off in the distance, right there. And then I got another little pile here. Looks like an old tobacco tin right there. Old cobalt glass. I think it's going to be worth scraping around a little bit in here. So we're just going to take our pick and we're just going to drag, not going very deep. There's an old buckle. Check that out. Old suspender buckle or something. Freaking huge old bolt or pin of some kind. That kid definitely probably came out of a railroad car. All right, look at this. So here's my little pile of stuff that I dug out of the ground there. Bunch of big chunks of rusty metal, spoon, and then a couple of pieces of this green glass. But that's pretty cool. I'll clean that spoon up and see if I can get any markings off of it. Here's a bunch of these Prince Albert cans. Pretty cool. I always love finding these things. But then, look at this. I just nicked it with the end of my pick, so I haven't really looked at it yet. Ah, it's pretty cool. Got a little design on it. It says Illinois on the bottom of it. It's interesting. I'm not really getting down into the soil at all. I'm just kind of moving the top layer of duff, the pine needles and everything, and getting just what's on the surface of the ground underneath the pine needles here. Picking up some clues. There was definitely someone living back here. I got another one here. A little amber medicine bottle of some kind. Check that guy out. That's pretty cool. All right, I got done scraping around in here. Thought I'd show you guys what I found so far. So it's a pretty interesting little collection of stuff. This is a really cool old bottle, cork top. It's got a nice embossed design on it. I'm not going to be able to catch the light and show you guys very much, but that's a pretty cool little bottle. I like that. And then this one, I already showed you guys. This one, I think I already showed you guys that one too. It's got some pretty cool little embossing on it. And then this little amber, I don't know what that was. The spoon, and then the horseshoe, and just a variety. Like this is a big heavy pin. And then I thought this was pretty cool. And this is an example of how well this country preserves stuff. Had just a little bit of dirt over the top of it, but look how well preserved that thing is. All right, so we've been sniffing around this spot enough to know that this was definitely a living area in here, and some pretty cool stuff. There's one little bottle that I might take with me. The rest of it, I'm gonna leave here by the tree. I'm pretty sure this is remote enough that I don't have to worry about anybody else getting it. So, having said that, let's move on and do a little bit more exploring. Always a good thing to indicate that there was actual living quarters is stovepipe. So right there's a piece of stovepipe, and then right here is a stove jack. That stove jack is where the stovepipe went through the roof of either a canvas or a wooden structure. All right, well, I'm probably about a quarter of a mile, actually more like a half a mile, out this direction, and I haven't seen any cans or any sign for several hundred yards, so I'm just kind of gridding back and forth here, and I'm about ready to start looping back. So the thing about it is there were so many people up here in these camps that you could stumble across stuff just about anywhere out here in these woods. Started seeing these tin cans, and look what we got here. It's so hard for the camera to pick this up, but basically we got a cellar hole right there. This would have been the footing for some kind of a little cabin that one of the timber workers stayed in. I see some china here, cans, nails, bits of wire. Another foundation. This one's pretty legit. Look at that. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that was a decent sized little structure for out here. Look at this. Wash pan. So this is really neat. So actually some logger or some logger's wife did their wash inside that wash pan, and they lived in this little cabin right there behind me. You know, porcelain wash basin. Here's another divot here. There's that other foundation over there. So this was probably a more permanent structure, like maybe even like supervisor's quarters or something like that. I'm standing in a foundation. You might be able to just faintly see that other one back there. And then there's another one right over there. So there was a whole cluster of buildings right in here. I think this would have been a camp that they would have stayed at all year round. Kind of a cool milk glass pond container. So on this site right here, I'm guessing based on the size of it that there would have been, you know, probably 200 to 400 cabins on here. A lot of them were actually built in rail cars. Oh man, look at this can dump here. Crazy. Probably some treasures to be found down there, huh? So anyway, a lot of them stayed in cabins that were actually built right in train cars. So they actually built multiple sections of rails going through the camp so that they could just pull those rail cars through. They had the cabins on them, and a lot of the workers stayed in that. But some of them stayed in tents, some of them stayed in cabins that they built out here. Check this out. And they're just everywhere. Cans, glass, little spool, old stove, tobacco can next to it, part of an old barrel right there. So we are just gonna skedaddle back to camp and get some dinner going, because guys, I'm hungry, man. All that walking's worked me up an appetite. So dinners out here don't have to be complicated, as you guys know. So tonight I'm just going to make one of my standbys, which is a ramen. I'm going to give a shout out to my buddy Oracle Nut James on Instagram. You guys can go find him, but he sent me a big box of these authentic ramen noodles. So we're going to use a spicy seafood ramen noodle tonight. Drop a couple of eggs in it, and then I've got some thinly sliced prime rib here, so we'll drop that in there. So between the meat and the eggs and the noodles, we'll have us a nice healthy dinner. And then just gonna have a little fruit cup, some peaches there, and call it good. So it'll be an easy but a nice hot meal. So let's get some dinner going. I wanted to show you guys this stove. So this is an old, made in the USA, Coleman Peak. And when I say old, it's probably 15 years old or 20 years old, but it's a white gas stove. The thing that's nice about white gas stoves is they just work no matter the elevation, no matter the temperature. And generally speaking, these white gas stoves have a little bit more adjustability to the heat. So you can turn them down nice and low and simmer with them. So I like it. It's a nice little stove. All right, we'll get those going. Ah, here comes that wind. One thing I wanted to show you guys on this trip is this Lifesaver jerry can. And this is, I can't believe that I waited so long to start using this. I got this too from my buddies Josh and Daniel up at Lola Overland. But the thing that's really cool about this is I can pump it up, and now I've got pressurized water, right? But also, what's interesting about this is it's got a filter inside it. So I'm going to let the pressure off here. So this side is basically just the pump. But the other side that has the outflow on it has a filter. And so the water goes through this filter and comes out the spigot, pressurized. So not only am I able to filter a large volume of water, but it's pressurized, which is so cool around camp to have pressurized water. Now, that's a pretty good stream of water coming out of there. After I've been digging around out there in the dirt and stuff, it's nice to really get my hands clean. All right, we are going to call this good. Having myself a peach hint and a nice bowl of ramen. Oh, that's delicious. I like that spicy seafood flavor. It's hot, temperature hot, get a hot meal in me, nice and hearty with the beef in it and the eggs. The flavor, the vegetables and everything make it really nice. Just a good stick to your ribs meal out here. Boy, I tell you, that wind's really picking up and the temperature just dropped like mad just in the last 15-20 minutes or so. What I'm hoping is I'll get dinner in me and we'll still have a little bit of light and we'll take a little walk over that way. Look at another little part of the camp over there maybe before dark. We might have a little bit of a problem. I have no juice in my battery. However, I do have a jump starter with me. So thank goodness for the Noco Genius jump starter. But here's the thing that I got to think about is I'm not going to drive my Jeep anywhere tonight. And these things don't carry that much charge. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump it real quick and make sure I can get it started. Because there's always that possibility that my jump starter is dead. Which, dear God, right now I pray that it's not. And I just as soon find out now if it is dead. So this is the Noco Boost XL. Boy, thank goodness I remembered to grab this. I actually took this out of my Jeep and had it in my truck because I don't have one for my truck yet. All right, looks like we got charge. Get a good connection there. Good connection there. Let's turn her on. All right, it's boosting. Oh, thank goodness. All right, well, I'm basically just going to leave my Jeep running probably almost until I go to bed, just to make sure that it's nice and charged up. All right, well, I have that my jump starter charging up. The Jeep's running, obviously. My phone charging up, everything I can charging while it's running. I'm gonna give it about 10 more minutes or so, then I'm gonna shut it down and start it back up and see if the battery's taking a charge. All right, it's been, I've had the Jeep running for about an hour total, so here goes. Let's shut her off and see if she starts back up. All right, cross your fingers, guys. Yes. All right, so that's cool. So what we know is we know that at least the battery is taking a charge. It'll be interesting to see if it holds a charge all night, but that makes me feel a lot better. All right, well, actually starting to get a few raindrops, so I think we're just going to crawl up in the rooftop tent. Got my teeth brushed, my evening hygiene done, and so I'll get everything kind of tidied up here so that there's nothing that'll get hurt by the rain. I'll probably put my chair in the Jeep because I don't want it to be all soaking wet in the morning. Everything else, it's fine if it gets wet. What's up, guys? All right, I'm all snugged up here in the rooftop tent. I got my little Covea heater. Even though it's really not that cold, I bet it's like 40 some degrees out there, but it's still nice just to have a little heater in here. I've got all of my gear next to me, all of the normal stuff I like to have. I like to have my Glock 19X next to me, a flashlight. I've got my clothes laid out underneath the camera, my shoes handy in case I need to bail out of the tent in the middle of the night. And there's a breeze out there. Every once in a while there's a few drops of rain, but nothing too serious. So I'm just going to kick back and read a little bit until I fall asleep. I'm reading Undaunted Courage by Stephen Ambrose. It's a story about the Lewis and Clark expedition, and it's really a good book. Highly recommend it, man. It's a kind of the whole story of how the Lewis and Clark expedition came together and just everything that they went through. Really well researched and good read. So anyway, guys, I'm going to read a little bit and then fade off to sleep. So that's all for today. Coyote works out. I'll catch y'all in the morning for coffee. Well, good morning, guys. Well, I slept like a baby last night. Always sleep so good out here in the woods. So I'm just doing the usual. You guys know my routine. A little bit of instant coffee dropped in a water bottle. Shake it up until it blends really well. That's my first caffeine for the day. It's about 6 o'clock. We'll probably give it until it just starts getting a little bit more light out there, and then we'll step outside and we'll cook some breakfast. And man, I am excited about breakfast this morning, and I'm hungry. All right, so we get a few pieces of gear on us here this morning. Next thing we're going to do is make sure that our Jeep will start. All right. Yeah, it's a little chilly out here this morning. I'm hoping that we're about done with the rain and the wind, and I'll have a nice calm morning to cook breakfast. Cross your fingers. Oh, looks good. Looks like we got good power. Oh. So the battery held a charge all night. That's good. So we don't have to worry about walking a ways out of here or anything. That's really nice. All right. Well, now that we know that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and let it run a little bit just to be safe. But we can start getting ready to cook breakfast. All right. So the first order of business is to get some water boiling to get us some hot coffee. I'm going to show you guys I'm going to make a real treat this morning for my coffee. All right, guys, for coffee this morning, I've got a French press. These are the Brew Trek French presses, and I picked this up obviously at Jeep Overland, but in order to French press a perfect cup of coffee, I'm just going to put a nice amount of grounds in there. You almost can't have too much coffee grounds in there. Now what I like to do is I like to let the coffee kind of steep in there a little bit. Got a little half and half. It's my favorite, is I like half and half in my coffee in the morning. I think that steeps long enough, so just nice and slow. We'll force our grounds down. Oh, that's amazing. Beautiful cup of coffee. Top of the morning to y'all. All right, next order of business is going to be breakfast. All right, for breakfast this morning, we're just keeping it real simple. I got a can here, and I apologize, I tore the label off, but this is a can of Heinz beans and tomato sauce. I've got a couple of eggs, and I've got some brown and served sausage. So basically, this is real similar to a traditional breakfast that I would eat a lot down in South Africa. The beans and tomato sauce with the eggs and some kind of sausage, ham, bacon, salt pork, something like that was a real common breakfast down there. And it seems like a little bit of a weird combination for those of us in America, but it's actually really good together. So I'm looking forward to a little bit of a taste of South Africa this morning. I think it might be kind of a British thing too, the beans with eggs. But maybe some of you in my audience that are from across the pond can tell me about that, a little bit more history behind this type of a breakfast. The tricky thing a lot of times is doing this all with this kind of a breakfast, a multi-course breakfast with one burner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my can of beans and I'm going to set them inside this pot of boiling water, and I'm going to let them just kind of start cooking up in there first. They'll heat up in the can. Then I'll throw the sausage in the pan. I'll cook up the sausage and then toss the eggs in the pan last. And then I'll be able to pull my hot beans and pour them on the plate. So that way I'll be able to cook this whole breakfast with one burner. See how this breakfast is. It's a really interesting combination of flavors, the beans and tomato sauce and the eggs, but it's good high protein, high fat, good stick to your ribs, last all day kind of breakfast. Okay, I just got to tell you guys, this Lifesaver jerry can just makes cleanup a breeze. I just did my dishes and I washed my hands off. Yeah, I think this is going to be another piece of gear like the Ready Light that is just going to become one of those staples in my system. All right, well, we had a good breakfast and now we're getting ready to go on a walk. I'm going to show you guys around this part of the lumber camp over here. But first, I just wanted to show you real quick how simple of a kit I have with me. So I literally have this enamel covered carbon steel skillet, one enamelware plate, an enamelware bowl, and then a spoon and a fork, but just a normal spoon and a fork like out of my kitchen. A pot, that happens to be a Pathfinder pot, my French press, a little bit of camp soap, and that's pretty much my entire kitchen setup right there. Oh, a enamel mug. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get some of my camp buttoned up because the wind's picking up and I see some dark clouds rolling in, and so we might have some more rain. I'd just soon get my rooftop tent down and everything before the rain comes too hard. So one little trick I've showed you guys before, I think, is I like to use a bottle jack to level up my Jeep. So I carry a bottle jack in my rig. Actually, I carry two of them in my rig. That's my preferred kind of jack, is a bottle jack. And one of the reasons why I like it is because I can stick it under whichever corner of my Jeep is a low corner, raise it up, and get my rooftop tent nice and level. Alright, I got my rooftop tent stowed away, and a good amount of my camp put away, at least all the stuff that I'm worried about getting wet just in case the rain comes in. And let's go take a walk and I'll show you guys around the rest of this lumber camp, and we'll talk a little bit more about what happened here. So what I want you guys to think about as we're walking around in here is a couple of hundred cabins, some on railroad cars, maybe say 100 or so cabins built right onto the railroad cars, rows of canvas tents on little wooden kind of foundations or platforms, and then even a few cabins in here. Some of the cabins they would have pre-manufactured, set up on top of railroad cars, and then lifted them off when they got to the campsite. But as you look around here, I want you to just think about literally hundreds and hundreds of people swarming around here, logging, going back and forth between their camps and their tents, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, right here, I'm walking up a row of pits. I'm sure this was living area stuff, or maybe these were latrine pits, who knows. There's basically a row of them right here, and down underneath all of them there's old cans. If you don't get out and look, you wouldn't know any of this was here. Ah, look at this. Looks like the fender off of a car. Yeah, we got a bunch of metal in here. There's a stove jack, always a good sign of living quarters. Another big old truck fender or something right there. So this, I'm guessing we're getting more into kind of an industrial area of the camp. I don't know if this is where they parked vehicles and equipment and worked on things. And then here's more stones right here. Yeah, this looks like some kind of a foundation. Bigger cans here. Look at this. Broken coffee cup. Oh, look at this, guys. See that bone? How it's sawed right there? Sawed on both sides. That was a big chunk of meat that they used to make a stew or something with. Oh, there's a big barrel over there. I don't know if you guys can see that. Half of a drum. Oh yeah, look at this bone pile. And there's cans in it. Yeah, but check this out. Every single one of these bones has a sawed edge on it. Right? So this was definitely a butcher area. So this is another piece of the puzzle. So here, because of the bones that are all cut up that I'm finding, the little bit of fence over there, the chicken wire, and all of the big number 10 gallon style cans in here, my guess is that this is the area where they were doing the camp cooking. The majority of the camp group meals prep, they were probably butchering cattle here. Now these camps up here with a couple of hundred men, you got to think that they actually had livestock with them. They had small herds of cattle. They were butchering the cattle to make big stews and meals and stuff for all of the lumber camp workers. But if you think about the scale that it would take to feed on a daily basis, say 200, 400, 600 people back in the day. Wow. We hit the industrial dump area mecca. Big old drum right there. I don't know what these are. These look like some kind of pumps or something. There's a whole bunch of them. Oh, it's got a handle on it. Some kind of a crank. I don't know what that is. Yeah, so this is a bunch of industrial trash here. Wow. Look at it all back up underneath that log there. So now we must be way over in an industrial area. So maybe the area where they repaired and serviced the train cars and the locomotives, the engines. Another piece of the puzzle. So now we've got a living quarters area all the way back over by the Jeep. A little bit further this direction, we've got a community cooking and butchering area. And then now, even a little bit further, we're over into the industrial repair kind of area of the camp. So here's the next spot. I'm now up on the hill. Back down over there off the hill is where that industrial area was. But this is really interesting right here. So here's an excavated depression. It looked like the wall is lined with rock. And then these are old railroad ties right here. So I don't know if you guys can see this very well on the camera, but some of the ties are sloughing off the track. But basically, this was a portion of the railroad track that was built up for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why. Oh yeah, so there's ties there. You guys see that? Railroad ties. So the track goes off that way, and then it goes off this way. And we got this big, it's basically elevated here. So this is quite a ways away. Now we're probably a half mile or so away from our camp. Yeah, this is all interesting. Oh, look at that. That's pretty cool. Let's see, what does that say? Certo, August. Very interesting bottle. Old crown top. Hopefully the camera's picking this up. It says, for 1/2 bottle, pour to here. Interesting. And then on this side over here, it says, Certo, record U.S. Patent Office. And then nothing on the bottom. Cool bottle though. All right, guys. Well, I did some pawing around in the dirt behind this log, or just actually in the duff of the log a little bit, and gosh, pulled out some interesting stuff. That little teacup, this, I'm not sure what that is, maybe some kind of a handle off of something, little fork. This thing right here, which is pretty cool. I'll see if I can clean it up and figure out what that writing is. And then a couple of these cork jug tops, those are pretty cool. And then this little bottle right here, cork top, slick, doesn't have any embossing on it, but still pretty cool little bottle. And then a flat file. So not bad for just a couple of minutes of picking around down here. This is a pretty major dump site right here though, so this was a huge camp. Look at this. Dang it. Crown top. So it's not a look how crooked that is. Look, guys. Do you see what I see? Oh, it's gonna be broken, isn't it? What is it? What is it? Oh no, I see a crack in it. Look at that though. Cool bottle. But it's got that crack in it right there. Interesting though. Let's see if I can find any marks on it. Oh, check this out. This is kind of cool. A little teapot lid or something. All right, well, I wanted to show you guys something I saw here. So see this little stump right here and that pine cone on top of it? That's where a chipmunk or a golden mantle squirrel had lunch. See, they chew off all of the outer part off of the pine cone to get to the pine nut that's on the inside of it. So anytime you see that little pile of pine cone needles or leaves or whatever you want to call them up on a stump, that's where a chipmunk, otherwise known as a golden mantle squirrel, had lunch. There is camp, and not a minute too soon because I'm starving. So I think we're gonna grab a little snack back at the Jeep. All right, I'm gonna have a little lunch, and I'm gonna have one of my favorite little snacks out here, kind of a guilty pleasure snack, but some baby smoked oysters, and these are the chili pepper flavor ones. Some Ritz crackers, some cream cheese. I'll have a little bit of fruit and some bugles. So again, this is a great example of how like meals don't have to be complicated out here. Some smoked oysters, some cream cheese, and some crackers, a little fruit cup. Easy, no mess, no fuss, but good. Top it off with a little peach flavored hint. All right, I'm gonna throw my table and my chair in, and then I will be ready to go. And we'll roll on, do a little bit more exploring. I wanna stop up on the other side of this camp, and who knows what else we'll find. Okay, so we are on the trail. We're just gonna drive a short little ways. We actually got to kind of circumnavigate around the edge of the camp to follow these roads, so it'll probably take us about 10 minutes. We'll drive about half mile, quarter of a mile or something, and then we'll get out and check out this other side of the camp over here a little bit. All right, guys, well, I wanted to jump out up here and show you guys. So now we're up the hill. Where we were camped was back down there about a half a mile. And now we're up to the upper deck of the camp. And what we're looking at right here is we're looking at a whole pile of rotted railroad ties. So this is where they had stockpiled all the railroad ties. In fact, you can see old bits of cable and stuff in here. This is the yard where they stored material, because it's hard to see, but up there, this stack of railroad ties that's right here, stretching all the way back there to my Jeep and goes all the way up there. You can see it going all the way down to the end of those trees. And when I was young, when I first found this site, you could still actually, these ties were actually still distinguishable. Now they're pretty well rotted, but look at all of the stuff here. Like this is a bed frame right here, and then again right here we're just walking on top of the piles of rotted ties that they had stockpiled up here. And then as you walk around out here in this open area, I believe right here at this site, what they had was a water tower, and somewhere through here a track came, and this is where they watered the trains. Just another little piece of this incredible history up here. So I'm guessing this area right here was more of a working area. They had the water tower right there, had the ties all stockpiled here. But pretty amazing, pretty huge operation altogether. Yeah, look at all this glass. This is crazy. With as many times as I've been up here before, I've never noticed this. Interesting. Yeah, there's a little bit of a depression right there. So that would have been underneath the building. Boards, trash there. There was a building here. Well, probably several, but look at that. You don't want to step on those guys. Well, like all good things, this trip had to finally come to an end. It was time for me to start working my way back out of the forest, back into the desert, and on towards home. But as I was working my way out, I was reflecting on the trip and thinking about just how expansive that lumber camp area was. I know this will be an area that I'll probably come back to many times and uncover more and more and more of the story with each trip. But for now, I hope you all enjoyed joining me for this adventure. I know I sure enjoyed having you along. I'll look forward to your questions, your comments. I appreciate your support, but above all, I'll look forward to seeing y'all on the next adventure. Until then, Coyote Works, out.